Good evening, everyone. In a good mood tonight because we got a good show, great show tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to Sign of the Times. We're going to get into our discussion tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for allowing us to visit you tonight. Thank you for allowing us to spend some time with you tonight to discuss topics that is heavy on our mind. And we're going to get into it and we're going to have a wonderful show tonight. I hope you've had a wonderful day today. Hope you having a wonderful evening tonight. I want to challenge you tonight to, as one announcer used to say years ago, stick and stay. Stick with us. Stay with us. We are going to go at it tonight. We're prepared for a great show tonight. I promise you tonight, we're going to address some issues. Someone said, why you keep dealing with it? Because hopefully someone will see it. Someone will be able to say, you know what? I found out a good solution to this problem by watching the broadcast. Again, thank you. I want to challenge you tonight to write your comments and concerns and questions and confusions, whatever it is that you want to say to us tonight. Put it in the box. You'll see it on the screen. Hopefully we'll get a chance to post on the screen. I want to challenge you to share tonight. Share this broadcast. Let's get it out there. We want to say hello. We're live streaming this show, not just on Facebook, but on YouTube. To all of our YouTube viewers tonight, thank you for joining us. I am ready. Let's get into it. You all ready? Hit the share button. Go to YouTube. Hit the like and subscribe button. Support us. Support us. Your support matters. Your support means a lot to us. I'm ready. We want to get our guest on the screen at this time. They were here last night, and we had a wonderful conversation. We're still waiting for our other guest to come on, and we're going to invite him on when he comes on. But my guest tonight, as always, like I said last night, these two gentlemen think they own the show. Please hit the share button. We don't want our numbers to dip. We don't want you to watch for 2 seconds and then leave and go back, because you're going to miss some valuable information tonight, because we're going to talk about it. Join me in welcoming to the set tonight Apostle Stephen Gardner and Dr. David Walker. Dr. Stephen Gardner, Dr. David Walker. There are two doctors in the house. I don't know what they got on their heads, but it must be hat night tonight.
It must be hat night tonight, man.
Tell Felicia to like these hats. She like yours. She got to like the rest.
She gives a thumb down on our hats, right?
Yeah, if she puts up anything about y'all hat, I'm taking it off the screen. Let's get into it, guys. We got some viewers up here, and we're talking about last night, and we're going to continue tonight talking about the book White Fragility. And it's written by, the author is Dr.
Robin DiAngelo.
Robin DiAngelo. As a matter of fact, Felicia called us the 3 degrees. I guess that's what what we are. There's the book, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And the book is very powerful. The book is very powerful. I'm going to move this border off the screen so that we can actually see the entire, as much of the book cover as we can. The book is very powerful because what she does is she's talking about, and please, again, people, hit the share button so we can get, so that we can get some viewers on here to discuss this. It is written by a white female talking to whites. That's important. The reason why it's so important is because of the fact that when we talk about racism, especially as much as we've been discussing it and talking about it, people tend to think that we're white bashing. They think that we're just 3 angry black men sitting up here talking about white people. That's not the case. And this book is proof that there are some whites out there that are saying, we have a problem, y'all. And so this book talks about, and we talked about it last night, and we'll get into it tonight. I want to begin by bringing up a subject that is heavy on people's minds around the country with the coronavirus as heavy as it is and starting to kick back up. The big question is, when do the kids go back to school? Can they go back to school? Should we allow them to go back to school? When we talk about school, if we want to interchange it with this book that she wrote about white fragility, about, and Dr. Walker said last night about being fragile. And if you look at the book cover, you will see how even the writing looks like it's broken, how they are so fragile when it's time to discuss racism. If part of the problem in this country is dealing with education, when do we educate our children? Can we educate them? Can we look at tonight? Can we start off talking about the role of education in racism? Now, in her book, she talks about the school system and racism. My question to you guys, and of course you guys can jump in and take turn, whoever wants to do it. How does the school system reinforce racial ideology? Or does the school system reinforce it? We know it's there. Does the school system reinforce racial ideology? And if so, how? Now, Dr. Walker, you've got your doctorate in education. I would think that that'd be a good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everything is about a mindset. And let me just throw this in or I should say parenthetically, like Bishop Williams would say.
Yeah, that's his word. Uh-huh.
I was watching a right-wing TV station. It's called Fox News. Mm-hmm. And there's a gentleman by the name of Sean Hannity. Uh-huh. He was talking to Mark Cuban, who was the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. And they were having a discussion, and the term education came up. And when Mark Cuban made a statement that Sean Hannity didn't agree with, it had to do with like math and counting. Sean Hannity said, "Mark, you sound like the kids from Baltimore, who come up in that education system." And I wanted to jump through the TV because what he did was he threw an entire school system under the bus, and he labeled all. And obviously, he's talking about Black children in Baltimore, how they lack education and, educational knowledge. And so I was so upset. I wish I could have been on and had something to say about that, because it just goes to show how bent or how the mindset it is towards African Americans and their education. So in talking about the school system, yes, the school system is full of racism, because when you deal with what is it, the testing that they do, it's racialized because it doesn't teach from the African American perspective. It's taught from a white Anglo-Saxon perspective, and of course African American children learn differently. But yet these assessments, these standardized tests, are sometimes we don't get as good grades, grades as well, because of the way it's structured. So is there racism in the system? Absolutely. There are many scholars who have written on racism in the education system. And I think the education system in many ways is a detriment to Blacks and to Black education.
Mm-hmm. You agree, Dr. Gardner?
I most certainly agree that the system itself is, in essence, the system itself is racist, because it does restrict, certain things, that it puts a ceiling or limits what people of color can do. Can I just back up for a moment?
Sure.
You mentioned this thing about Sean Hannity, and Dr. Robin DiAngelo mentions that in the book, and in talking about certain innuendos that imply or that people know are code words for people of color.
That's right.
And so when you say a code word like those people in Baltimore, well, everybody that watches that news network know that you're talking about people of color.
Absolutely.
Right.
So the statement itself presents a lack of fairness toward people of color from Baltimore, as if there are no other people
Right.
in the Baltimore school system except people of color.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So I think that, you know, we live in a society today, and it's in the school system, it's in corporate America, it's in other places where code words are used. And when those code words are used, you already know the individual or the group of individuals that you're talking about. And
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And if I can add something, you know, I worked in the New York City school system, which I retired from about 5-6 years ago. And many, many years ago, we had this term called social promotion.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever heard of that. Social
Yeah.
And basically, it's moving kids on
Yeah.
because of their age, although they never learned.
Right. So you're not 21 years old with chewing gum stuck under your knees from the desk and all. Right.
Right. And so, so there are so many systems that are in place where Black children are not getting the proper education. And there's a whole lot of, you know, there's a number of reasons for it, because it has to do with dollars, you know, dollars committed, because you cannot have effective education without money. You have to have materials, you have to have books, you have to have good teachers, you have to pay teachers. So yeah, the system is always going to be racialized and have a bent towards oppression of minorities. And the only places where I have found, in terms of public education, where children are advanced, it's where those communities where parents have good jobs and a lot of the spending comes from family support, you know, community support. If you can get family putting their dollars into the children's education, even though it's a public education, and community support, you can get a good education. But if that education is primarily minority, not well-paid families and mothers and fathers, you're going to be challenged to educate children properly.
Right. You know, and I think you're right. You know, in my awareness and about the public school system itself and the disparity as to, for example, those children over there in Baltimore would imply that they are coming from poor families, poor Black families, would imply that they're coming from neighborhoods where the parents might not be owners of their property.
Okay, right.
Which means that the dollars, they're renters. And so the dollars that are going into the school system from the neighborhoods are not coming from them. You know, in other words, you know, there's no home ownership, you know.
Right.
And so that's going to limit the amount of dollars. That's why you find a lot of Blacks that try to move to the suburbs for educational purposes.
That's right.
So that their children can get a better education. Because why? There's going to be more wealth or a better economic scenario in the suburbs, and so it's going to be more dollars that's going to be poured where? Back to the school board, you know, to the school district, right?
That's
and
right.
as a result of that, you're going to have laptops. Come on. You're going to have computers. You're going to have, you know, better teachers, you know, and the like. And so the education itself is going to, quote unquote, be better because of the resources.
That's the right word.
Are more prevalent.
That's right. Can we get to Felicia's question?
Yeah.
Sure. I don't think the entire question is on the screen.
I can see it here.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Because she's asking, do you believe that we should have things segregated in our schools, and were we more open to being accepted instead of keeping our kids with Black educators who would have taught us about us and prepared us better? Now, here's my answer to that question. I believe so. I know that in 1954, when we had the law case was Brown v. Board of
Education.
Right.
When you know when schools were then integrated, and what happened in that case was when they desegregated schools, right?
Right.
Black children went to white schools. Not only did Black children go to white schools, but Black teachers lost their jobs.
Wow. Because
the white schools did not hire Black teachers. So the thing was, if we're going to integrate, the Blacks are going to have to come over to where the white schools are. Black teachers are going to be out of a job, and then white teachers are not going to teach Black children what they need to know. And the number one thing, and I'm glad Felicia asked that question, because the number one thing that a child needs in order to learn is self-image.
Okay. All right.
Self-esteem. When a child has self-esteem, a child will learn. What happened is when children go into predominantly white communities and are taught by white teachers, remember before we talked about bias. We talked about unconscious bias, meaning that means you have a bias towards a particular group or preference towards another, and there are some people who don't even know it. But then there are some people where bias is explicit. They're clearly racist, they're clearly prejudiced. And a lot of Black children, when they went into those environments, they were not taught properly because of the bias and the prejudice of the white teachers. So to answer that question, if you're asking me what America should have done or what the court system should have done was allow, make schools equal, meaning pour more dollars into the Black community, give them a better education in their communities, then they would have been taught by their own teachers, and that would have helped with their own self-image. That would have been the solution. And if I could add one more thing to that Brown versus Board of Education. On yesterday, we talked about interest convergence.
Okay.
I'm forgetting the scholar, but he wrote the book called Critical Race Theory. I'm forgetting his name, but he's the author of Critical Race Theory. One of his points in Critical Race Theory is interest convergence. And he argues that the Brown versus Board education was interest convergence because by integrating the schools, which benefited Black people, that also benefited white people as well. So the only reason why that law was passed because whites were going to be benefited in some way because of the integration. So he is Derek something, I can't remember. I'll get the name and get it to you later. But he also argues interest convergence for that particular court case, Brown versus Board of Education.
Again, for those that are unaware and just tuning in, the book that we're discussing is called White Fragility by Dr. Robin DiAngelo. And it, again, I think we need to really stress this. It is a white female talking to white America, basically saying that we have a problem.
And notice when you read the subtitle to the book, she's telling why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. She's saying it.
Right.
Because it is difficult. And here's another thing about fragility. We use it as being fragile, but it's also a defense.
Yes.
That's what she's really talking about. It's It is what whites do as a defense so they don't have to actually deal with the racism. Get angry, get upset, say, no, I don't want to talk about it. Or say like what you said tonight, why are y'all always talking about it? You know, things aren't the same anymore. Yes, they are. And that's why we must continue to talk about it. And what she's trying to say is whites have to stop being so defensive about a subject that we need to talk about.
Right, and we'll talk about that later on. That's one of the talking points that we'll get to about being defensive. You mentioned something. You talked about segregation. We were talking about that on page 61 of the book. I want one of you guys to address this quote. She says on page 61. Here's the quote that she wrote: "It is not African Americans who resist integration efforts. It's always been whites."
Mm-hmm.
And then she started talking about white flight. Talk about that.
It's not African Americans.
It's not us that resisted going to be with them. It's them that have always resisted coming to be with us.
Well, I think if we look at that in light of what we've already talked about, this integration thing, it did not make that segment of society happy. It did not make white folk happy.
Not at all.
Now, if I've already got a concretized idea of what Black people are, now it's like when certain people move into the neighborhood goes down.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So now that they're going to come over to these schools, it's going to be problems, and so there was some pushback, there was some resistance. The other thing too is this: when you look at the question that I think that one of our, he said was, I think it was Dartez Wright. He said, "I believe integration is one of the Black community's greatest downfall." You said something early on when we were talking about it, how that the integration was really not fair play for all players.
Mm-hmm.
The Black teachers did not go.
Right. They lost jobs.
Right.
So we were already at a disadvantage, as what Doc is saying here, is that we've lost our image bearers,
Mm-hmm.
our candlesticks,
Mm-hmm.
our icons of hope. And now we're forced into a situation to where I may not have someone that, here's this politically correct word, culturally competent, or that can talk to me like my uncle would talk to me. Boy, you better get somewhere and sit. Can be real and can, when a Black child, man, is in an environment that feels much, it becomes like home. It's an extended family. And what happened with integration, the sense of family, extended family, went out the window.
Well, that's true, but let's deal with this. This right here, Dr. Gardner. Because you talk about the teacher losing the job, you talk about the teacher not going with them. Now, even today, you have a predominantly Black community, but the teachers at the local school are predominantly white teachers. Does that send a message, a hidden subliminal message to the kids in that school and in that community? Because the teacher is always above the student, and the teacher is where the student is striving for. You're the teacher, you're teaching me, I'm learning from you. Because I'm learning from you, it's giving me a sense of inferiority. You're superior because you have the knowledge, the wisdom to teach me, to pull me up. If all of my teachers are white and all the students are Black, does that send a subliminal message of racism in the sense of uh, you're better than me?
Absolutely.
I don't know whether I pose that question, like you
no,
said,
it's fine.
politically correct or not.
It does. It's like, well, where are our icons? Where are our images of hope? You know, where are the people that we can look up to? Or does that mean the only people I can look up to are people that don't look like me? Is there
Right.
something wrong with me? As to
And
why?
that's not blaming them. That's not saying that it's them because they want to teach.
Okay.
Or does it? Because there's some that do it. There are some that probably do it to make themselves feel better. Go ahead, Dr. Walker. I'm not going to get into that. But
Well, there's a couple of issues there.
I'm about to get in trouble.
One is like Rev was saying, you know, where are the Black educators? That's number one. Number two is anytime you have a public institution, I'm just dealing with public schools, you're going to always have a larger majority of white teachers as a group, because obviously there are more white people than Black people.
Right.
More white people are going to go into education and teaching than Black people. So even
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Well,
I mean, I apologize for cutting you off. But when you said that, I thought about what we talked about when we were together last week or week before last. We were together and we talked about that it seems like we're only good for entertainment.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, education is not a glamour job. You know, when you become a teacher, because matter of fact, I know somebody that's on this show tonight. Mm-hmm. He was a teacher for about 20 years and he got volunteer pay.
Yes, I know him very well.
Yeah, I know that guy too.
Yeah. So it's you're very seldom going to be wealthy, make a whole lot of money if you go into education. You know.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So now, here's the solution. It starts at the top. The principal, superintendents, first of all, they're going to have to be people of color. In order for more Blacks, people of color to be hired in schools, plain and simple. Because if you don't have it at the top, or at least if a person is a Caucasian and they are the principal, they're going to want to have a sense of having a more diverse, a teaching staff. Otherwise, you're going to always have disparity in numbers. So it has to come from the top. Because when you say a predominantly Black school with predominantly white teachers, something is wrong there.
Mm-hmm. So then that brings in the question, is the teacher that's white in the Black school wrong or racist? Or are we talking about a systemic problem?
Right. I don't think it's that teacher, because that teacher is doing what he or she loves to do.
What they love to do.
Right. Now the teacher's just there because they want a job.
Okay.
And I may add this, and it's not necessarily the case, but sometimes, you can get funneled, because if all the best jobs are taken,
right.
And you want a job, you kind of get funneled into lesser communities, but you're going
to East Side High.
Yeah, right. You're going to go there because you want a salary. Now, the question becomes, what do you do when you get there as a Caucasian teacher? Because you do come with biases. You do come with prejudices. And you can be, while you have the tool in your hand to educate minds, but you can also, deflate education because of depending on, your views.
Absolutely. So we're talking about a systemic problem in education that is impacting or enforcing racial injustice.
I pose the question. I pose the question myself. Everyone else is asking questions. I pose the question.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Absolutely.
A
teacher can be, just like a supervisor at the post office can be, or wherever the person might be.
go a little deeper with it, because if I am a racist, why am I doing something to, if the field of education, the goal is to better a student, empower a child, why would I try to empower or better equip a child that I don't particularly care for?
Oh, listen,
You're
why?
not you're not going to empower them.
Listen, I often have this saying is um, the uniform is one thing, but the person is another. Meaning, a police officer, the uniform says protect and serve.
Mm-hmm.
The person is a totally different thing. A teacher's job is to educate.
Right.
Just because I wear the title or the uniform of teacher, that does not exempt me from having biases or having issues that does not compute with being a teacher. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of reasons for having the job. And like I said, it could be a situation where I wanted to be at the white school. I didn't get that job there. Now I need a job. So this is all I have. So I take my biases and my prejudices with me. But just because I become a teacher, an educator, a police officer, or even a clergy,
Right.
I can wear the collar, but I can have a whole lot of issues on the inside.
So, I don't have a can of worms by me, but this is a can of worm conversation. You can kind of see why the school choice, movement is vital, or had been vital.
Right.
Have been vital. You're looking at some of the efforts by that were done up there in Milwaukee and other places like that. And because the idea was, if I can get these dollars to follow the parent can send their child where they want to send them to.
Right.
Which,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's special interest groups that's on both sides that kind of battle about whether school choice, is a viable solution for, in the midst of public education. The same thing is running true for charter schools. It's taking a portion of those dollars and emphasizing maybe certain things. So is there any really sound solution that can really help the Black student that we have control over? Because that's a system that's already set, and it sets curricula.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It tells what type of pedagogy that you're going to use. I mean, it tells you all that, and you can't be inclusive of anything that they have not already prescribed. So I can't include maybe some additional facts about Black history, because this is the only thing that I'm taught to teach.
Right.
So what happens in a case when someone like my daughter that goes to college and calls me and says, Dad, I'm getting things done, but it is so hard. And I'm saying, no, you're intelligent. What do you mean? She said, Dad, I'm getting it. But high school, they didn't prepare me for this at all.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. I mean, because that whole pass-through thing, and I'm not saying, I mean, we can't treat children or students as if they're chattel. We just got to get them through, graduate them, because, we can't retain them here. But if we have that attitude to the least, then we're not going to do the best for the others either.
Mm-hmm.
We're just there holding a spot, and so, and that's a problem, not only for Black people, but it's a problem that's in the school system itself.
Right. Right. Felicia says, what Malcolm X said about his teacher downplaying his desire to be a lawyer, because he simply, with telling him he couldn't simply because he was a Black male. And again, are we, and when I say we, because we can also include Blacks in this next statement. This isn't just for whites against blacks. We can include blacks on blacks. Are we telling our young people the same message that because you're black, man, you the best basketball, you're gonna be the next man, you better run. Now I'm a football coach.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be the best. I'm a football coach, and unfortunately, we may not have a season this year. But the guy that I had penciled in as my starting quarterback, he I kept telling him, man, you got skills. You're gonna be the next what's his name from Baltimore, Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson, yeah.
So I mean, do we do the same thing? Do we push them instead of saying, man, you're gonna be the next Willie Gary, you're gonna be the next Johnny Cochran? Do we say, man, you're gonna be? We do the same thing.
We do,
and we do a lot of downplay, and so that's a behavior, that's a pattern that we've got to correct to be moved toward the solution.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, while this whole thing of white fragility, and I think she mentions that too. I think there's in the book she does give some sort of indication about the problem that if I have a negative, if I adopt, here's the one, and this may not even be in the book, but this is the truth. If I adopt the attitude of the oppressor toward my own race,
that's powerful. That is powerful. That is powerful.
And when you do that, it's like you are, oh God.
But do we do that because we trust them? Do we do that because we trust that? I want you to see me when I say this. Give a good wink. Do we trust them that their attitude has to be right? Their attitude has to be the gold standard. So if their attitude is the gold standard, then what I'm doing is I am going to adapt to and address, I'm going to adhere to their standard for me.
Are you talking about the teacher, or who are you talking about? Their standard.
Who was she referring to? She was talking about the culture as a whole.
The culture as a whole.
Oh, right.
And I believe she mentioned, well,
I do want to say this before we go any further. Those that are watching, please stick and stay. My two guests here, how do I do my hands? There we go. I feel like the Brady Bunch. They don't know, but I have another guest that's going to show up in a few minutes to join us. And I think those of you that are watching, you're going to be glad. Just hang tight. We're going to add to this panel. We're going to keep talking about it.
They better have a hat.
No, they don't. I don't think they're going to have on a hat, but
let me go back.
Y'all need to take those hats off anyway. Y'all don't look as good as I do with this hat.
That a trip.
Let me go back to whether or not we as a people downplay. I'll use Felicia's word. Downplay the ability to become, lawyers and doctors. Here's the problem. When we look at images, what do we see of success? We see the ball players, LeBron James, the Kobe Bryants. We see the rappers and the entertainers. Those are the images that we see. We don't see Robert Johnson.
Right.
I told you the guy.
And that's a good point. Yeah. Let's take what you're saying a little further.
Right.
If we can dig into it. What is the image that you take a 10-year-old black young man?
Mm-hmm.
What is the image of living conditions? A successful living condition.
What is it? I mean, for some, their conditions are not high. There's challenges, economic challenges, there's struggles, there's family issues. So that's, community issues. You're not necessarily seeing the best of life. It's all about image. And that's the gentleman I was talking about. Thank you, Jeremy. Robert Smith. The number one, Robert Smith is the the richest black man in America. He worth about $4 billion. Then there's another guy, I think his name was David Stewart. He's got about $3 million. He works at another tech company. But somehow or another, these people have gotten to technology. You got to get kids into science, technology. That's what, being doctors and lawyers. Until we change the image, until we change the narrative, until we convince the average black child that you are capable of being a doctor, a lawyer, a business person, it's going to remain the same. Now, how do you do it? Well, you got to start taking them into those arenas. They already know the sports arena. They already know the rap arena, the entertainment industry. Take them to the museum. Take them to the science fair. Take them to the next technology fair, whatever. A kid, some of these kids today, they're starting to get into computers and gaming. Some people are making money through that. All right, fine. But I'm talking about other things where you're going to have a long career, a long profession. Until we start moving them, telling them, giving them visual aids, seeing, them doing well. I mean, listen, we had Ben Carson until he went crazy, but other than that.
How you bring him up? Look at the comment. Look at the comment. Felicia said, "White images in business, black images in entertainment."
That's right.
Isn't it so bad that even when you take someone such as a Jay-Z,
right,
who is successful in business,
mm-hmm.
we still look at him as what?
An entertainer. Exactly.
And we don't even pay attention to the business side, because the business side is what really makes the money. Yeah, I might be able to have the skill, but you got to have a mechanism behind that that's called business.
Right.
Do I have good business acumen
when
it comes to running the musical or the entertainment industry or my entertainment brand?
Right.
So now what we have to do is that part of the pedagogy, part of the curriculum is to instruct.
That's right.
Our young black males and females and glorify business.
Mm-hmm.
See, we got to switch to glory. We got to, that's a religious word, but
we
got to take the glory off of just the performance side.
Right.
And put it on the business side. Even, the NBA or the NFL players and things of this sort, you see the players, but the people that's making the most money is not just the players.
That's right.
It's the people, the owners. Come on. The Mark Cubans. The point that I'm making is that if we don't emphasize business, if we don't teach business, if we don't glorify business, we ain't gonna have no business.
But it has to be legal business.
Well, yeah,
right.
it can't be something you deal out there in business, but it can't be anything like that.
Hey, listen. Now I want people to hear me now. I'm not necessarily supporting a weed business, but it is a business. Some people making some money off of it. It is a business. I'm not telling you to do it. Here's what I do know. They've opened it up for a business.
They've opened it. But don't we have to start early? I came up, you guys are a lot older than I am. You called me a baby yesterday. But I came up in a time when if my mama wanted the yard raked,
right,
you get out there and rake the yard.
Yes, sir.
I wish she would have. Can you imagine? I never can fathom my mama telling me, go rake the yard and I'll give you $10.
That's right.
That won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
You gonna do it because you live here.
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. You're gonna do it because you live here.
But Dr. Gardner, shouldn't she have paid me to do it, to instill in me business?
Even if it was just a roll of pennies.
The mentality.
At least I've got that person thinking
Right.
that, hey, if I work, then it generates it. My ability to work is a way of making money, and to understand that, I even like this statement that Felicia's putting up there about a black father gave his daughter a vending machine instead of a car for her 16th birthday.
Right. Yeah. Because I know me. If my mother had gave me $10 to cut that yard, I know me. I would have taken that $10, went across the street, got Dirty James, gave Dirty James $5,
right,
and told him to cut the grass. But guess what I did?
You would have enterprise. You went into enterprise.
I started my own lawn care company.
There you go.
But because their mentality wasn't thinking like that, you're not able to pass it on to me. And because you couldn't pass it on to me, we don't pass it on, and we got a cycle going on.
That's right.
Wow.
How do we morph into this conversation?
I have no idea. Well, it's all in the book.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
It's all in the book. She brings up another topic of white privilege. Does that exist? She says it does. Now, again, for those just tuning in watching, this is a white female talking to whites, and she says, my people have what's called white privilege. You guys, does it exist? At what level does it exist? Explain what white privilege is to us. Guess what? Like I'm a 6-year-old.
Go ahead, Dr. Walker.
So I'll give you the dictionary definition. It's a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. Now, that's the definition of it. The question is, does that apply to white people? Okay. Now, if you ask some of them, they'll say, no way. There's no such thing. Now, a person like Dr. D'Angelo, because of her experiences, she understands, yes, I have an advantage. I have been granted an immunity in certain cases, in certain spaces. So therefore, it is a reality. I was watching a show the other day, and they said that Barack Obama should not have been the president because he only had a little bit of experience. He was a senator for maybe like a year or two. Right?
Right.
How does a person get the right to become a president with no experience?
Wow.
Oh boy.
If that's not a privilege, they argued his little bit of experience. At least he had some. But when someone has no experience and they are allowed to take the highest office, I'll give you the definition again of privilege: a special right, an advantage, an immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. You or I would not have been allowed to have that seat looking like we did.
Unless they give you a pass.
What, a pass down the hall? Like go to the bathroom?
Yeah. If they give you a pass because you assimilate and you don't rock the boat, they give you a pass.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of that.
But let me go back to
a little bit of privilege, a little bit of benefit, right?
Let me go back to the question again. So it's not for me to answer. I believe that there is a privilege. I had to learn that there's a privilege that whites have because, when I grew up, I was always trying to navigate whiteness until I learned that everything is almost measured around what they think and what their perception is. I had to come to that conclusion. Every step that I'm making is worrying about what they think. You know, I went and got all these degrees because I didn't want anybody to think that as a black man I was dumb and stupid. You know what I'm saying? But that was their perception. You know, they say if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in the book.
Well,
I went and bought all the books so I could find what they was trying to hide.
Come on, Malcolm. Come on, Malcolm.
Boy, you talking tonight.
Sound like Malcolm.
You know, because they, in my mind, coming up, they set the standard.
And you know, that's true. When I grew up, basically, you got to work twice as hard.
Twice as hard.
Because of the color of your skin. You've got to, you know, if all that's required for you to have is a certain tie, a shirt and a brief and a blazer, you better have a tie to go with it.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? We always had to do more. You know, we always have had, and I think that's a reality that people of privilege never understood that reality.
Right.
It's one thing telling a person to pull themselves up by the bootstrap, but if you ain't got no boot, you ain't got no strap to pull up. So,
or if you don't have the knowledge of what pulling up is,
or the knowledge of what pulling up is, and so there's a reality that's out there that does not really get the plight or the experiences or the things that a black person has had to do in order to just make it. You know, in order to just get there. We was told to get an education, so we got one. I mean, and all these kinds of things you got to do. You know, what I did early on, let me tell you what I did. You know, I don't know if I had an epiphany, because back then I did kind of dabble a little bit with what we call happy smoke, but I leave it alone. But anyway, I don't know if I had an epiphany or not, but I had decided that I'm going to go into the military because I saw the benefits of advancement. I paid for all of my degrees because of most of them. I won't say the doctorate. I got halfway through it. But my point is, I paid for the military because of its benefits, funded my education from my bachelor's degree through my master's degree, and partially way through my doctor's degree. I saw the benefit. So what I told my kids, Pops ain't got a lot of dollars. You know what I mean? I can't break you off. I'm not in a position, I'm not privileged with an account that when you go to college that you can just tap into.
Right.
But I can tell you what worked for me. And what worked for me was the military. Well, 2 of my kids did that. I got one that's getting ready to retire from the military. And so and she's an officer. She's going to be a major. In other words, my point is, and she's working on her doctoral program. So my point is, even though the schools may not be the voice box of how that black child should advance, the parent has got to be the responsible one to be able to say, look, this is what worked for me, do this. Or I know somebody that I can refer you to that might be able to tell you what's going to work for you. There is no ceiling if you can have a vision or an epiphany. How can I get around that? How can I make this thing work to the best that I possibly can do? And I don't think anyone's going to take anything away from me for that.
Let's talk about a couple words, because we talked about this earlier about some hidden codes. I want to give you guys a word to talk about, because here's a hidden code. One of you can jump on this word, the other one can jump on the next word, and then you can flip a coin for the third word. Here's a hidden word, a hidden code. Urban.
Black.
You beat me to it.
Black.
Jesus.
That's okay.
You want me to expound on it?
Not yet. Yeah, you fine. Inner city.
Chicago. Detroit.
Uh,
Philly. No whites allowed. No,
wow.
they are coded. They are definitely coded because they're not going to give the image of multicultural, or they're not going to give the image of predominantly white. And those words are, it's coded language that identifies urban, inner city. What's the next one?
Here's one where we really get into an education. Disadvantaged.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know that. I mean, what are we talking about? The Riddland community?
No.
Okay, so who are the disadvantaged? What is the nomenclature, or for those who are disadvantaged? Does it mean by means of some medical or physical malady, or does it has to do with
Well, I mean, isn't it a hidden code for them to say, call us disadvantaged? We talked about urban, we talked about inner city, and disadvantaged. Isn't that a hidden term, a way of saying
Black.
black?
Yeah.
Let me hide this book, if you guys don't mind, and bring in those of you that are watching going to be surprised because I've got a special guest for you all tonight. I've got a special guest. I know Dr. Gardner going to fall out his chair because you haven't met my guest, but you heard about my guest. I want to thank Bishop S. Janine Hyman
Oh no!
joining us tonight.
Oh no!
Woo!
Boy, this is a blessing.
Listen, look, I told him, I said, look, I just came from walking, I'm funky. Can you jump off? I said, no, give me about 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Bishop, for joining. Oh, you don't know what it means to me when you said I'll be on. Yes, because we want to. I mean, what a way to pound this topic. Pound. I'm just honored. I feel. Woo.
I said, oh Lord.
I feel like a little one.
we need a psychologist point of view.
Pose the question, Dr. Gardner. Pose the question.
This book. We need your point of view on white fragility.
You sent that to me today, right?
Yeah, I did.
Clip of the author. Yeah, I actually was writing some quotes because I said I'm gonna use some of this. I think, I mean, from her perspective, I think it's fairly accurate. I think the pathology is far deeper than so far from what I'm hearing, what she purports. Indeed, I would certainly agree that the systemic racism is something they benefit from. She used certain words like we were shielded from racial stress. We've been shielded from certain things. As a result, we feel entitled. Now, entitlement is one of the key features of narcissism. There is a growing number of evidence, including my own, that suggests that the culture is becoming increasingly narcissistic. Back when we used to examine blacks and whites, we found that white people were far more narcissistic because of certain things like entitlement and what have you. So I think there is a narcissism that is innate within the culture that allows the exploitation of people. That is a key feature. Feelings of entitlement. People are seen as a commodity, as something we can use and throw away if it's not good for our image or what have you. So I think there's a whole diagnosis that's not there, and much of their self-hatred, and that's what it is. They always talk about we have self-hatred. Yeah, maybe all people do. I don't know, but part of their self-hatred as we talked on the other night, is their lack of melanin, their lack of soul. And
Wow.
so the other piece of this, I was thinking as I was looking at the clip that you sent me, Apostle, thank you so much, was that, the other piece of this is they are the minority on the earth.
That's right.
That's true.
And when you are the minority, there is a fear of becoming extinct.
Mm.
And so
Wow.
there is a visceral fear of becoming extinct that is visceral. And then there is a psychological fear of extinction or losing your power and prestige. And
Mm.
so that piece, it may be in the book. I haven't gone that far into it, but I think that piece is missing. Everything out for them is out of fear and this lack of. Even she said, white folks don't even know their own history either. So
Right.
it's like, okay, well, that didn't happen. That happened to them people, and I'm not that, and and there is no individualized racism. There are individual racists, but
Mm.
racism is a socio cultural thing,
That's
and
right.
the whole culture, a
That's
whole
it.
nation is built on it. It is
That's right.
inherent in the culture. So you don't have to be an individual racist to enjoy the benefits of racism and
Exactly.
being the in group. How we the minority? Y'all the minority in the whole earth. How are places like Africa, the mother and the cradle of all civilization, as wealthy as it is, a very wealthy continent? How are they third world? Who is the third world? Who is the
Mm.
second world? Come on here. It's all. I'm telling you, they create all of this to pad their security.
Mm.
It's kind of survival of the fittest. They believe all of that, and I think the author said also um, that because Europeans are individualistic, we're tribal.
Yes.
At
Yes.
least
She did say that.
when we used to be African Americans, now we're just Americans. But when we were African Americans, we used to be very tribal, very communal. They are very individualistic, and so they look at racism on an individual term, not as something that is
Collective.
uh absolutely, absolutely. So this sickness exists in the collective unconscious of a people who don't know they're pathological.
Mm.
Wow. Wow. She. Were you going to say something, Doc? Were you going
Mm-mm,
to say something?
no.
She mentioned something in the book,
Mm-hmm,
and um, and I believe it's on. Yeah, it's on page 68
mm-hmm,
in the book, and in summary, she says, and she's talking to a white person talking to her own people.
right.
She says, in summary, our socialization engenders a common set of racial patterns,
Uh-huh.
okay, which I think pathology does have patterns.
Absolutely.
And she said, these patterns are the foundation of white fragility. And then
Mm.
she gives a list, and I'm not going to go through them all, but she says, preference for racial segregation and a lack of a sense of loss about segregation.
Right.
Second one, lack of understanding about what racism is.
Absolutely.
Third, seeing ourselves as individuals
That's it.
exempt from the forces of racial socialization. And then one that I'm going to mention here, lack of authentic interest in the perspectives of people of color. And she says that these patterns, and it's about 10 patterns, 10 or 12 patterns that she has here, are really the foundation of white fragility. Um, so,
That's
so what
right.
do you have to say about, those some of those things there? Or do you have something else to add?
They're exactly what I said in more palatable terms. As she says, okay, well, we as individuals, we don't see that like that.
Mm.
We
Mhm.
don't have an idea of what racism really is because we're it. We can't hear or have conversations or look at the perspective of other people who are not us, because if you think about, I mean, look at everything. I just reached out to. I hope I can find him. He was my professor. I think in '79 or '80. He's a black psychologist. His name is Dr. Napoleon Peoples. And I remember at the white school taking African American studies. One of the books we had say even the rat was white. I mean, everything is white. Science is white.
Rat.
Even the doggone. I mean, we can't even have a hood rat to do an experiment on. Even the rat was white, and so everything is white. I mean, everything white. Jesus white, God white, the rat was white. Everything is white,
My
and
hat
so
is white.
yeah, I mean everything on TV. We just starting to see really halfway decent images of African Americans and other brown people on
Mhm.
TV. But back in my
Right,
day, we was like Auntie Mammy and Coons and
right,
and and
Wow.
and all of that stuff, black and white. I mean, we were like slapstick comedy. We've always been amusement to them. We've always
right.
been entertainment to them. And so,
Mhm.
yes, we'll pay you $1 million to run that ball, because we're gonna make $1 billion off of your genius and your black body. See,
But
Right.
so
but Bishop, even you talk about the television shows, role models. Even with that, back in the '70s,
yes,
our television shows that were successful were shows that did not um, project success, such as Good Times, Living in the
sure,
Hood, and
sure. Now,
Sanford and
now
Son.
I'm not a '70s baby, precious, but sure, I'm a little older than that. Okay. Um,
I'm the baby. They keep telling me I'm a baby.
yeah, yeah. But I can remember when TV was black and white.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when TV was black and white, they would have movies. I would watch them with my grandmama on the black and white TV that we finally got. We finally got. And
Hmm.
they were maids and they were butlers, and their lips were
Hmm.
big and distorted, and their eyes were big like spooks, and all of that. Ancient Mammy and Ancient Mammy on the pancake box and all of that. So the portrayal of us has gotten better over time, but those images are still there. Those subtle images are still there, that we struggling, finally make it up to the east side, and now we have some rich folks in here, but a lot of the writing, it ain't our culture. It's black faces with white culture. Some of this stuff that our black folks do on TV, we don't do no mess like that.
Mm.
We don't do no say something like that to your mama. Watch you eat all of your teeth. So even now what we're getting is like a hodgepodge, and all of this. If you look at now, there are a lot of interracial couples, even on the commercials. There are a lot of interracial couples, and they're doing commercials now for these anti-age drugs, and our men are licking and lapping on each other, and I'm saying we don't even see the assassination there. That you can't keep your own men. We're gonna let our women take your men. We're gonna let our trash take your men. We're gonna let your men take your men. I mean, it's
Wow.
everywhere. Their depiction of every culture outside of them, something is wrong with them. But if
Mm.
you look at
Wow.
what comes out of them, they shoot them up, bang, bang. Look at all of the gore, the horror flicks, the sci-fi movies, the craziest. We would call that demonic. The craziest demonic stuff comes out and plays itself out on the screen. That tell you what kind of stuff that we ain't like that. We're not like that. And so they don't have an ability to see anybody other than themselves, because in this
Yeah.
country, everything is them, including Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Wow.
He white.
No,
That
they
that's
say
true.
he white. He ain't white. They say he white.
Yeah.
I
I
never.
mean,
I
anybody
said their
you
depiction.
you you
Yeah.
can you can just you don't even have to be a rocket science to figure out anybody that grew up in that heated climate. You're not gonna look blonde hair, blonde eye, and blue.
Right.
You
The
know what I mean?
closer
You
you
don't
get
look
to
that
that
way. I mean,
equator, the darker the tone.
you're gonna have dark tone. I mean,
Right.
that's just facts.
Right.
Those are just facts. You bring out some really powerful things there for us to think about. And so, when you talked about the thing with um, entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember? Do y'all know what show it was that was a turning point of black image?
The Huxtables.
Boom.
I think
The Huxtable.
I don't know.
Now
Well,
look at Mr. Huxtable.
It was a turning point.
I was going to
Well,
say
Now look at
with Julia,
what happened to Mr. Huxtable.
who were you going to say?
the one with the well, she was the first on TV. What's her name? Diane Carroll. But that was a little early.
Was it
But
that
she was
girl?
in a subservient role, right?
What about? Let's go back further. What
No,
about the
that
Jeffersons?
girl? Was that Diane Carroll? Was it that girl?
Yeah, no, not that girl was a white girl.
Oh, you talking about Diane Carroll? And
Diane Carroll played Julia. I think that was
Julia. Okay, Julia. You're right. You're right.
What about the Jeffersons?
Julia was first. She had the first clean image.
That's true.
Julia.
Yeah, but I'm asking what about, because someone said Cosby,
Yeah.
which is what you all said. But what about the Jeffersons, who said we're moving up, who was a black man with some money?
But look at George Jefferson act like a black fool.
But he still act well. Let's talk about that bitch, because he acted like a black man with some money. Cosby on the Cosby Show, didn't he almost assimilate? But George acted like a brother.
No, George acted like an idiot.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, that's what I meant. I was trying to be nice on the internet.
Pimping and all that stuff. I mean, it was just too much.
It was stereotypical.
Right.
Exactly. So even if you got something, you're moving on up to the east side. Finally, listen at the desperation. We finally got a piece of that pie.
Right.
Yeah.
Now
And
we
yet,
create a pie of our own.
And yet, if you notice the show, he was the only black on the show. Well, his family, his wife, his family.
Black chick married the white guy.
Even their friends were interracial.
Sure, absolutely.
But I think the Cosby Show was probably the most impactful because the type of jobs employment that the two had, a doctor and a lawyer, which you don't find, or at least not then, in the black family. Right. That was a success on par with white folks. George Jefferson, even though he had money, and I'm not knocking the cleaners, but it didn't have
struggling
prestige.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it was clean, and they lived in, I mean, you could tell, from the environment they lived in, everything was very polished. And it was a nice family with nice little kids and nice values and all of that. And so because he did or he allegedly did what other folks been doing, now all of a sudden he's demonized and bastardized.
Well,
Dr. Huxtable.
Yeah.
Dr. Huxtable.
I still watch the show.
Huh?
I still watch the show.
I'm surprised they ain't pull it.
Yeah.
They did, but they put it back because it was too obvious why they pulled it.
Because
and it was hurting the other actors and actresses because they weren't going to receive the royalties. So why punish them if you felt like he did something?
Okay.
Right.
But I know they were trying to pull everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the I mean, I won't even get into that tonight. The pathology of their moral system. It is pathological, it is hypocritical, it is punitive. They're crazy.
I'd like to ask the bishop a question. Bishop, I want to ask you.
I can't see nobody for one minute.
You all right? We can see you and we look good. Just trust me.
I just want to see a bro. I just see a hand. I want to see a brother.
I want to see a bro.
So when you this is not out of the book, but you use the word narcissism that white folks have.
Yes, sir.
I was watching a documentary the other day, and it was talking about the 1960s and the civil rights movement. And then Stokely Carmichael, I think he changed his name to Kwame Ture. All right. He came up with this phrase, or at least I think he gets the credit for it, that said Black Power. All right. And then, of course, we know James Brown sung the song, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. Right?
Yes.
When I was listening to that, and I'm going to try to connect this to that video that we saw with a supporter of President Trump, the guy out in Florida when he yelled "White Power"?
Uh-huh.
Y'all saw that video.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to try to connect the two. All right. It is my belief that when Black people say Black Power or say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, they are saying it for the sole purpose of raising themselves up, not necessarily to be equal with whites, but you're trying to raise yourself up at least to success. Black power. I'm raising myself up. But when I hear whites say white power, I believe that they say white power because what they are attempting to do is to reclaim something that they're losing when Black people come up.
Hold on.
What do you think about that?
Hold on.
I think she done gone to get
No.
Somebody gonna get this in a minute.
Was that the Klan?
All it is the same thing without a hood.
Uh-huh. Right. There you go.
It's the same thing without a hood. Because that is that underlying, that's one of the underlying principles of supremacy. It's our power, our nation, our takeover, our this, our race, our superiority. Absolutely. Ours is a sign of, hey, look, I'm Black and I'm proud. I don't have to hold my head down for that.
There you go.
I'm not inferior.
That's right.
I don't have to, yeah, I'm Black. Hey, let me pick my afro out. I'm Black and I'm proud. Yes, say it loud.
That's right.
So it was something for us that was I can say it was edifying. It was building.
It was validating.
There you go. There you go.
Yes, absolutely. That white power is a hood, baby, without a hood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
what about
it's a whole hood.
What about the white woman that told me that I need to stop playing the victim, that we need to stop playing the victim because I suggested that now is not the time for them to joke about Aunt Jemima. And I was told, you guys need to stop playing the victim and everything and get over your victimology.
That kind of stuff, that's their pathology. Now, they almost bought mine out. They almost bought my pathology out. And I'm saying, y'all better leave that lady dead. Leave that lady dead. I was brought on a thread where someone, white sister had gone on. She was talking about, God is not pleased with all this division and, quoted some scriptures, that if we don't stop being divisive and dividing everybody and not coming together, we was going to get we were going to get a little whipping, like Jesus said. And so somebody invited me to that white conversation. People going, oh, may I share? May I share? And so all the Black folks are saying, now, wait a minute, what are you telling us? So now, since you brought me into the conversation, I said, now, out of the eyes of an apostle, and I'm looking through the lens of a Black psychologist, what this looked like to me, and I'm sure she didn't mean this, was I need all of y'all to stand down.
Wow.
If y'all don't stand down and stop all of this calling us out, Jesus gonna whip you. And I say, even you don't say whipping to no, don't know white people say whipping nothing to Black people right now.
Wow.
Because it's gonna drudge up. And I talked about her insensitivity. And I said, is this a threat that if we don't stand down, so I got a nice little inbox from her. She said everybody took her the wrong way, and blah, 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 and yankety yank. I'm going to answer her in time. I'm being prayerful about how I do that. I'm probably going to try to embrace some of that. But I'm telling you, what it sparked in other white people on that thing, they were like, don't hold me responsible for something that happened 60 years ago. Don't even bring that to me. Anything happened in your past should be laid on Jesus. And I said, God, please, something finna rise up in me. And I'm getting ready to tell you, oh my God, I got so angry. And then the Lord said, don't even answer that.
Mm.
Don't
Just
answer
take the
food in this
data.
folly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just take the data because you need the data. And
Mm.
the data says this is part of their sickness. I think the author alludes to that. No, actually, she goes right there when she says, you know, we're individualistic, so we cannot take any responsibility for racism, or we can blame the victim. And so what I start to say to them, Pastor Bishop, I start to say clearly you don't know your Bible that you quoting, because God tells Israel, you better remember how I brought you out of slavery. Come up under your own kind. But you better
Uh-huh.
remember how I brought you out of slavery. You better remember my vengeance on them. You better remember how I swallowed them up. You better remember my vengeance and your deliverance. And they celebrate it every year, call it Passover. And God tells Israel, you better tell it to every generation following. And that's
No.
been our downfall, is that in our desire to deny
Hmm.
that this is on us, or that this was our lot, or to make our children better, we did not pass down history. And just like we did not pass down history, we did not pass down that we are the originators of all civilization, that all math came out of African people, science came out of African people, art came out of African people, culture came out of African people, God came out of African people. So we never passed none of that down because we were too busy trying to assimilate. And so,
Mhm.
what they're really saying to you is, I'm scared. There it is again. Y'all need to stand down in Jesus' name because you causing too much ruckus. So you blame the victim. It's like, I'm going to rape you. And then when you can't ever get over the trauma of the rape because I changed your whole life, I invaded your body, I overpowered you, I took from you, I took your innocence, I took everything from you. And then I'm going to tell you, oh, I'm sorry, I'm saved now, I'm forgiven, get over it. Are you kidding me? And so that's part of what they do. It is their inability to embrace the guilt and shame of what their people have done that's in their DNA. Because they're still saying we're not bad people. And even the lady said, well, you can be a racist and not be bad people.
Wow.
That's in her book.
She so sad. Wow.
And so we're gonna have to really, men of God, we're gonna have to really um come to grips with our anger.
Right.
And we're going
Right.
to have to, as he told me, said, put this in 6-year-old terms. We're going to have to channel that anger. We're going to have to feel the anger, because some
Mhm.
things in this world do not change until God gets angry.
That's
But
right.
when God said, I'm wroth, or my wrath is kindled up against, then we see God take people out. We see God take whole nations out. We see God scatter a people all over the globe that I'm convinced had to be some of our people. So his anger is always it's always severe, but it is always redemptive. Now, the new gospel from white folks is that God don't get angry no more because he satisfied all of his anger on Jesus.
It's under the law. We're under
Yes, sir.
grace.
That's right. We're under grace, and this is why our precious evangelical whites really love, and some of the our black folks who are now part of that capitalistic system,
Wow.
who have become millionaires. They're part of that same system and that part of that same network. They stand to benefit from preaching grace, because grace never makes you have to pay for nothing you did, because
Right.
Jesus paid it all.
Look,
Right.
and
Right.
that's the comment that Felicia Carter has up there, and she says, "I never understood how white America can apologize for the Holocaust and not slavery."
Because they can apologize. Oh Lord Jesus, y'all gonna take me into something. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there.
Go on. You there now?
You ain't gonna go there.
Go there,
They
Bishop.
can apologize for the Ashkenazim because they got white genes. They're not apologizing. They may not know They're not apologizing for the Holocaust of the original Jews and Hebrews who are a mixed multitude of African and Afro-Asiatic people.
Mm.
So
Wow.
when Revelation talk about those people who say they Jews and are not, they're of the
Right.
synagogue of Satan. I don't know who he talking about. All I know is the Ashkenazim is 13th tribe. They're not from the 12, and they're not from the Hebraic people. And so because there is, they were those kinds of Jews, then we can apologize for that. We can make reparation for that. But if they ever find out about the Falasha Jews and to find out
Hmm.
about the Jews and the
Absolutely.
Hebrews
That's
that
right.
are in
That's right.
Ethiopia, that are in
Right.
parts of Africa and India, all over the globe we are.
We
So
are. Right.
so we got to understand that part of our teaching about Israel, all of that's white. Israel,
Hmm.
all of that's white. Now we have a few people that have called some of these televangelists, because everything now they start everybody is everything, all things Israel, all things Israel. That's part of the evangelical
Uh-huh.
white
Absolutely.
agenda that Trump promised to carry out. So all things Israel, that if we bless Israel, we're gonna stay rich. If we bless Israel, we won't be extinct. If we bless Israel, all of that's fear-based and it is greed-based, okay? But what part of that whole hype is we have created this in all whiteness. Now, some of them now have been called on the carpet. What about these Jews in Ethiopia? So what they're doing is now they're going to get Jews, putting them on a plane for Aliyah, and they're taking them people from their loved ones and their families and taking them to Israel to fulfill scripture. And so now, just like we got pulled away, they're being pulled away and taken to Israel. It's I'm telling you, I don't want to go there because they're gonna say I'm anti-Semitic, even though my last name Jewish and it's in my bloodline. I'm not no anti-Semite. I'm anti. Stop lying to us. Stop lying to us about who you are, and stop lying to us about who we are. And so that whole thing about Israel is economic, and it is some kind of spiritual security that if we do this, God is going to keep
It,
blessing us.
it feeds capitalism. That's the bottom line.
You're right.
Absolutely, sir.
Absolutely. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ain't nothing
Bless
but stuff.
Israel, and
Yes,
you'll be
sir.
blessed. That's
Yes,
Right.
sir.
capitalism.
That's about,
But
if I do this, that's right. We're gonna secure our riches, and we're gonna secure. Now, that's why I say don't take me there, because all of this is a reconstruction. It's a reconstruction because somebody read the prophecies and reconstructed history. And I'm gonna leave that right there. 1948, Israel becomes a nation. Yeah, because somebody reconstructed it. Now, all these folks who call themselves Jews have to go and study a reconstructed language of an Ashkenazim rabbi who reconstructed Hebrew. It's a reconstructed language. It doesn't even look linguistically like ancient Hebrew. The ancient Hebrew
Ooh,
is linguistically an African language.
girl, you done dropped the bomb up and through here, and this could.
I'm trying not to say nothing.
Lord have mercy. I'm about to go over here and pull
I
some
should
of
have
my books
stayed with
off
my
my
stinking
shelf
arms.
and
I'm
point it
about,
out.
about to take my hat off.
You know, look, I mean, that's a lot being said there. I mean, you know, the question that in light of all this, and maybe this is not the forum for it, but why are we so persecuted like the Jews? Does that mean that we are part of that Jewish diaspora of
Well,
the original
some of our
Israelites? What do you think?
some of our Hebrew. I got a call about that from a very prominent bishop the other day. Some of our Hebrew brothers do not claim Judaism; they claim to be Hebrews. And those people who were brought from Egypt were not Jews; they were
Mm.
In
Hebrews.
Hebrews. Mm.
Hebrews. And so these promises about a land and all of this starts as Hebraic. In fact, Abraham is not even part of that initially. He from Ur of Chaldee, so he's not even a
Mm.
part of that. So there are people who purport that we are the Hebrews. Some people purport that we are part of the Jews who maybe were brought over. Some of those Jews who were brought over in the diaspora were probably some of the African Jews. So we may, all I know, according to Deuteronomy 28, and I say, if history repeats itself and is cyclical, then
Mhm.
prophecy also repeats itself and is cyclical. Because you got to have prophecy on a bad history. So whether they were talking directly to us in Deuteronomy 28, and I suggest that people read that. Some of those things in Deuteronomy 28, the guy says, act like you're going to forget me. Act like you're going to forget that it was me who brought you out and who gave you the power to get well. If you do, I'm going to bless you. And this, that, and he does this. And he said, if you don't, your children going to be brought over in ships, in chains. You're going to have hemorrhoids in your behind. Your women ain't going to be respected. You're going to be scattered all over the globe. You're going to be a bygone word. You're not going to have a name. Ain't nobody even going to know you ever existed. So now, if they did that, and they did, who is them people in Israel? That's the question. And so I think when we look at our history, somewhere in there, it talked about even 400 years. That 400 years for us was up in August of last year.
Last year. Mhm.
Yeah, so we're closing out all this pandemic and all this stuff is strategic. We're closing out an era. And I believe that is part of that 400-year era that we're closing out. And this is why we're beginning to see some unrest where some things may change. So I don't know if we all Israelites, if we all Hebrews, if we all, I know we all came over here from somewhere. And I believe that we are in that number. And I believe that Deuteronomy 28 does kind of speak to our history. It's too close for comfort to me. Too close for comfort.
My problem is this: we all dressed up, put on our hats, and she came over here and stole our thunder.
I ain't stole no thunder. See, it was
We
Apostle right there. Because
we
Apostle, Apostle,
we we
when
got all dressed
When
up.
Apostle saw me, he was like this. Oh Lord, see, you did that. See, I wasn't
Dr.
gonna say
Walker like
nothing.
me. Dr. Walker like me. He's sitting there saying, "I don't know what I'm doing. What are we doing here?"
No, I've been enjoying this one.
I put my hat on. I'm through with this
Look,
hat.
I'm
I
just
mean,
laying something out. But all of this stuff is controversial. I think it's, I think we're doing what we need to do. I think
hmm
we're fleshing it out. We're talking it through, and
hmm
I think many times truth and God will show up in the dialogue. I do.
right, right.
That's
Absolutely.
why they don't want to talk.
They don't want us to talk about it. And even we have gotten to the point where we're objecting to talk. Why y'all keep talking about it? Someone shared with me, they said, listen, on your show, don't beat a dead horse. It's not dead yet.
Oh no, the horse not. I mean, it. We have to understand, as the lady has said here, this is painful.
So it
This
is.
is painful. It's
Sure.
painful for them to actually believe that the very thing that they called us is behavior they exhibit.
May I ask a question? And I'm trying to let you all go, but it's something on my heart, close to my heart, that I want to ask you all. And we don't have to take long because we've been on here a long time, and Bishop just surprised us and showed up. What about the person that is feeling this pain the most in our society? The white person that's feeling the most pain with racism. My nephew. My nephew married my niece, my sister's daughter.
Hmm?
My niece is black. Her husband is white.
Okay.
What about that white person that says, look, you can see from who I'm in the bed with every night and who I have a child by that I don't have a problem with your skin color. My nephew's been on social media pounding Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Hmm.
Isn't he caught between a rock and a hard place?
Uh, yeah. What y'all think, fellas?
Well, first of all, I think that there are some people and I'm talking about whites, no matter how you approach them, they don't want to hear it. But that one person who's willing to listen and have conversation, I do think that there should be a care. I really do. I think that there should be a care because see, a lot of them, and then there are some who feel attacked. And now I'm going back to the fragility thing. Because if I feel attacked, I'm not going to respond to you well. And
Right.
so we got to navigate it because I know that there are some whites who would like to listen, would like to have the dialogue, but if they don't feel like it's coming with love, they're going to push back. So it doesn't sound like that's your nephew. It just sounds like he's just in the middle of the storm.
Well,
Right.
has he expressed anything about any discontent with all that's going on? I mean,
Well, the only thing he's doing is listen, I'm a white male. I'm married a black woman. We have a child. Black lives matter. Not all lives matter. Black lives matter. I will never know your pain. I will never know your suffering. That's part of the problem that I had with the lady that told me to stop playing the victim.
Yep.
She kept saying, y'all, you playing the victim. It's always, and I said, listen, you will never know my pain. You will never know what it's like to be pulled over just because of the color of your skin, to be followed around town because you're a big black man driving a silver sports car. You will never know that. Well, then she tried to flip it and say, well, I care about blacks. I have a little community group that I work with black children and brown children, and I teach them. Listen, are you? I know, Bishop. I know. That's the way I was looking. Like, woman,
Right. That is the
you know what
worst
I
thing to
said
say
to her?
to us.
I
Try to
said
prove
to
something
her,
not racist.
I said to her the same thing Fred Sanford said one night. It's a good thing I'm a church member.
See, that's why I say y'all better leave that lady dead. But I think he's between a rock and a hard place. Um, you know something. My mentor said to me. She's licensed clinical psychologist. You know, my major professor in graduate school, first black female mayor of her city. You know, school board. All that. I mean, she a big baller. She 92. And one thing she said to me. Somebody made a comment to me about the pathology of white women, and they say you see who the biggest perpetrators of racial hatred is. It's white women, and I said, well, I ain't never seen that. You know, I mean, I was deprogrammed. And as I started looking, and so my mentor said something to me. She said, think about this. Here they calling us 3/5 of a human, apes, coon, this. You know, they beating us, they this, they're hanging, they're lynching. And then the men would go in and rape them black women with their wives in the house.
Listen.
I said, oh, she said, so that tells you something about their value of their, you know, and she talked about how they really secretly wanted that, you know. And that's why we got all these different colors, you know, present company included.
Mhm.
We got all these different things, you know. And how could you do that with your wife there? You know, or sometimes the women would say they did so and so, and they would tell the man, beat him, beat him, beat him.
Mhm.
You know, some of that stuff is still in that DNA. And
Wow.
so when you have interracial couples that are black and white, you have the history of both groups coming into one marriage. Either you're going to have to reconcile that history and you're going to have to deal with that pain together and hope you still stay together, or you're going to have to deny it. And so part of that is, okay, he got the black lady, he got her, and
Mhm.
he didn't reproduce another white child. He didn't want no white child, unless he'd have married a white woman. He didn't want no white, none of himself. He
Mhm.
wanted a black child. And so there's a whole lot of psychological dynamics there that have to be played around because they're a family unit. And it's got to feel um, extra heavy on him. Because, you know, them kind of people get called nigger lovers.
Oh, yes.
Well, yes.
See, they get called nigger lovers. Anything that you do, you know. But see, now the hype, the crowd hype, there's a psychology to the hype. Because now, if we're narcissistic, part of our pathology is Narcissists never know what they're supposed to do. They mirror other people. Okay?
Mm.
So once we saw 10, 15 white folks over here, now all of us gonna do it because all of us gotta prove we're not racist. See, all of this is, there are some people genuinely, legitimately, that are called to this movement, irregardless of, and I just made up a word, irregardless of color or ethnicity. There are people that God has his hands on, who will speak truth to power, like this woman has tried to do in addressing her own people. She famous in 2 days, so that was a good move. But the vast majority of all of this protesting and all of this stuff is crowd hype, and it's, it was okay until Floyd.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true. You know, I was thinking, and I sent this. I don't know if I sent it to all of you guys, but I sent the one about the pastor
Pastor, yes,
Right. I was going to
and
bring that up.
white
Right.
pastor in Mississippi,
yes,
Mhm.
and how his church ousted him.
yes,
Mhm.
You know, because he was,
Right.
very open about
Mhm.
racial injustice, and he was out there, trying to make empathizing.
Mhm.
And he got ousted. And I'm just, the question that I brought up is, this why, our evangelical brothers have
yes,
been silent, is because of a fear of a loss of income.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
he was smart enough, he went down the street and started another church.
see,
But he had ingenuity. He said, look, you're not going to shut my mouth, you know. So Justice went down the street and started another church. So anyway, but I think that what we see in this man's firing and the narrative that we hear being echoed is the same things that I'm hearing. Now, wait a
yes,
minute, these guys, are y'all reading from the same script? Because the same thing that I heard that was disclosed there of what he experienced is the same thing that I'm hearing from my evangelical brothers over here that are not down there. So is that some sort of collective unconscious that believes and says a language that says the same thing? You
mm-hmm,
know, I mean, they're
mm-hmm,
silent because of fear. They're silent because of a loss of income, a loss of status, a loss of constituents, which means I'm be watch this. I'm willing to sell out the cross
Wow.
to keep my comfort.
mm.
Wow.
But Bishop,
We ain't told the truth on the cross, no way. So, the little white man with the blue eyes, look like a little girl, and the little blonde hair, he just laying on there real nice. They ain't say they lynched the brother.
right.
They ain't say they lynched the brother.
But,
So they are reading the script, apostle, but they're reading the script from something they constructed. They constructed another Christianity.
yeah. But they sold the cross out ever since slavery, because the preacher on Sunday morning back during slavery would wear a black robe on Sunday morning, but then he would wear a white robe Sunday night with a hood on it.
Oh man.
Shando.
So
See, that's why I say.
they sold out the cross years ago.
Oh
Oh,
man.
and that's why they would put them in people's yards and burn them.
That's right.
How you gonna burn a cross if it's so sacred to you? See, that's the hypocrisy.
It's the hypocrisy.
We could
Wow.
jail Michael Vick for dog fighting,
Uh-huh.
okay? But you can rape our women, lynch us, beat us, flog us, burn us at the stake. You can do all of that, and nothing wrong with it, okay?
Burn down a whole town.
Come
Wall
on,
Street.
a
A
whole
whole
town.
town.
But now you telling me you are pro-life? Pro what life?
Pro-life until you're born.
Okay,
Oh
pro-life.
man.
Until you're born.
See, they're hypocrites.
Of course they are.
Because there's inconsistency in the way they have reconstructed how text is interpreted.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I agree with that totally.
Wow. Well, guys, we've been on here. I know you guys might not believe, but we've been on here almost a couple hours now,
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, next time, holler at a sister so she can freshen up and can on.
we
Cause I
we
was
gonna
out
do
there
this.
walking and
We're
can
gonna
on.
do this. I'm sure everybody watching would love to see this. We love to see this again. I owe you guys. I appreciate you guys. I mean, this is what is needed during times like this. It is good for us to get together
Yes.
and talk about this. And I know it was a sacrifice for all of you. It was a sacrifice for me. I don't want to do it until it's time to do it. Then I get excited.
I understand.
But I appreciate you guys. And I asked Bishop the other night, would she come back? And she said yes. So she's off the hook now. Bishop, you're off the
You're
hook.
off
You
the
did
hook.
it. You off the hook. You did it. I'm not gonna ask you to. You guys will be on here the day after
What you tell
tomorrow.
me I can't come back no more?
You
What?
come back, yeah. You better come back. You better
I
come
got
back.
home. I was like, what?
I
I was
think I'm
like,
like,
oh no, let me bend my hair. So no, child.
you could have did like we did, just throw a hat on. we
Yeah, man.
we
See,
do
I ain't
hat.
got nothing to cover up, you know.
Yeah, see, I got it all. Listen, it was just hanging because we just had a storm, and I'm trying to walk in this pandemic. So as the corona spread, I don't keep spreading. Praise Jesus.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Man, I appreciate you guys, and we know the hour was late for some of us. Dr. Gardner will stay on here because he's 3 hours behind us out there in Phoenix. So
Okay.
it's just 7
And
o'clock.
so it's just 7 o'clock here, you know.
Right. Yeah,
What can I
it's
say?
past my bedtime at 10. So
The sun's still shining outside, you know.
Oh
yeah.
wow! But thank you for sending that book to me. I'm going to get it so that I can have some other discussions. I did reach out to my former professor. I'm just trying to find him to say, hey, look, where are the seasoned black psychologists? We need to be talking now.
Right.
We need to be talking to seasoned black psychologists
Right.
who've lived through something, that's got a good grip on this.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to reach out to them to say, hey, this not the time. I know y'all old, but this not the time to be silent.
Right. That's right. That's right. Because we don't want to be too spiritual, and I hope that doesn't offend anyone when I say that. We don't want to be too spiritual that we're forgetting to realize we're dealing with some natural issues and some
Yes.
spiritual issues that we need, that we need to address. So yes, we need some seasoned psychologists to step up.
And seasoned men. I'm glad for this little intergenerational piece here. Because we need you. We just need you. That's it. We just need you.
Yes, we need the older seasoned generation and the younger generation, such as myself. We need Bishop not laughing at that.
That's that American narcissism.
Yeah.
I'm young. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. I'm young. Everybody knows it. I'm like my president. Everybody knows it. I've been hearing from people. I'm young. Everybody knows it. Man, I love you guys so much. I'll be in touch with you soon. Thank you so much for tonight. It was really special. And we're going to do this again real soon.
Okay, thank you.
And you got, before we go, please, before you go, please, I want to go around Dr. Gardner, then Bishop, and then Dr. Walker. Take a moment before we go and share with our audience what you are doing, because you're on here, but each one of you doing your own thing. Please, just so that everyone can know where we're going. Dr. Gardner.
Yeah, I well, obviously I'm a pastor. I pastor Fresh Presence Church here in Phoenix, but I got several platforms that I'm working through. We have a thing on Thursday night with one of my colleagues and co-hosts out in New Jersey. It's called Unchurched Live. It's a spiritual conversation for the seeker and the skeptic, and it comes on.
Oh, that's good.
9 p.m. you guys time. So that'll be on tomorrow night. Then on Mondays I have my own podcast, and it's called Talking Points with Dr. Stephen E. Gardner. And that's, you want to get access to that, it shows on Facebook, but also you can go to the archive, www.drstephenegardner.com. DRSTEPHEN Gardner.com, and you can get a whole go back 3 years and see all the episodes that I've done. So anyway, that's what I'm doing.
All right, Bishop.
I'm chilling.
All right.
No,
All right.
I'll be on tomorrow. Critical conversations. And maybe a whole bunch of us. With Bishop Coletta Vaughn on tomorrow night. I don't have a regularly scheduled Facebook Live. I was on last night. And so certainly you can go back and see. I just kind of drop it. It's intense for about an hour and a half. I just kind of drop it when he gives it to me, and they know my lingo. If he don't speak to me, I don't speak to thee.
All right.
So I'm very, very careful, since I am a representative of God, to when I open my mouth and when I say,
Right.
"Thus saith the Lord," He's not talking to me. I'm not coming on. So
There
I
you
don't
go.
have a regular schedule. I am planning, process of planning now, by demand. I don't know how popular it is. Apostolic and prophetic training, which I hope I'll be able to launch toward the end of the month or early August. So stay tuned for that because everybody's asking me for it.
All
So
right.
I'll go ahead and do that.
All right. Doc.
Yeah, well, I just started a podcast, and the name of it is called Beyond the Culture.
Mm.
And it's a show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. And it's a podcast. Really, I have conversations with all kinds of people. And as a matter of fact, earlier today, I interviewed a Caucasian gentleman, someone that I had been knowing for years. And the other day, he was at a Black Lives Matter rally in Philadelphia. And I wanted to interview him because I know that historically he's been someone who has been, I'll call him an ally, a friend of the family. And I wanted to get his perspective on the Black Lives Matter movement. And I thought it was a very intriguing conversation. We got very emotional about the plight on Black America. So we come out every Tuesday. I launch a new episode, so that should be out this coming Tuesday. But you can find the podcast on all of the podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify. But I also have a website called BeyondTheCulturePodcast.com. BeyondTheCulturePodcast.com. You can go there, and all of the current episodes you can listen to. And I talked the other day with a young lady where she talked about pop culture and theology.
Mm.
Very interesting. So we go beyond the culture. And I've had some interesting conversations. I still believe that I'm representing God, but I just believe that a lot of times we live in these norms. And I think it's time to go beyond. And I talk to people who are doing productive things in the community, especially Black folk, because that's my central audience. But if you know, tune in. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. That's Beyond the Culture Podcast, and I'd love to, hear your comments.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bishop T.D. Jake said one time, he said he told his staff, if ever I'm the smartest person in the room, you're all fired. He said, I want to surround my people that are smarter than I am. And tonight, you guys aren't fired because all you guys, the level of knowledge, education, and wisdom that you all poured out tonight is priceless. I'm telling you, I'm amazed at the level of education that you poured out tonight. And I'm forever indebted to you guys. I love all three of you guys, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I'm not trying to.
All right. I will talk to you guys later.
All right. God bless.
All right.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Well, my friends, I certainly want to again thank all of our guests tonight for joining us. It is just amazing when you are able to sit down and talk to quality, educated people who really know their stuff. And all three of our guests tonight, I'm sure you all are pleasantly surprised that we snuck Bishop Hyman on here with Dr. Gardner and Dr. Walker, and she just added that extra spice, that extra kick. Listen, before we go, hit the share button, do a watch party. You can start a watch party and then just leave and go do what you have to do and let others watch it. Hit the share button. You don't have to do anything. Just hit it and go. Support us. Go to our Cash App, Eagle Austin, $ Eagle Austin. I would love for you to help us tonight, not to stay on tonight. I got this. I got this tonight. But I want your help so that whatever we do tonight, I would love to be a blessing to our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, they took 2 hours out of their schedule tonight. They didn't have to do that. They did not. Bishop Hyman just got finished walking, and when she got back, she looked at her phone and saw that I asked her to come on, and she did that out of the kindness of her heart. And I'm asking you, help me. Let's treat them to lunch tomorrow. Let's do something, any amount. If it's $5, that will give one of them a $5. Let's get Dr. Gardner a Happy Meal or something. Would you help us tonight to be a blessing to our guests? Tomorrow night, Bishop Leonard T. Smith, the senior pastor of Independence House of God in Crystal River, Florida, is going to come on, and we're going to see what the Lord has to say through the man of God on tomorrow night. I appreciate your love. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you sticking and staying with us tonight. The numbers did. I appreciate you. I see the numbers. You can see who's on. You can see who stays, and I appreciate everything that you have done. And tonight, I believe we as a people are a little better. We dealt with some things. We dealt with some issues to show we're not mad at you. We love you. We just want to come up. We just want to come out of where we are. And I'm telling you, the knowledge, the education. Listen, I'm going to say this before we go. It's one thing to get on here and talk about sham, ba, 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 and thus saith the Lord. Listen, we know that. But when you get a show and you get educated people, ladies and gentlemen, all three of my guests tonight, Dr. Gardner, Dr. Walker, and Dr. Hyman, all of them, they don't have their theological degrees from Sam's Club. They all have earned PhDs. These gentlemen and that lady went through the pathway to go to college. They got their earned doctorate degrees. All three of them know their stuff, and they proved it tonight. And we're going to bed a little better than we were when we got up this morning. Before we go, I need to ask you one thing. Need a favor from you. When you go to bed tonight, look yourself in the mirror, stare at yourself, and ask yourself, today, did I do something to make this world a better place? Did I do something to work toward my destiny? Or did I simply waste another day? Tomorrow, work towards your destiny. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'll see you tomorrow night right here at 8 o'clock on Sign of the Times.